Good evening, folks. This is Deb. This is a short take just to clear up a couple of points here. I made videos about Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer, okay? And I'm frankly, uh, I'm not sure how I feel about either one of them anymore at this point. But I will tell you this. Comments like, we really need them at this time, or Gretchen Whitmer's been a great, loyal Democrat. You know what? I don't want to hear that shit. We really need Gavin Newsom to do what? So he can, talk smack about Trump on social media or make a couple of posts here and there. Maybe do a couple of things in his state, like sue somebody. That's great. There's tons of governors doing that. Okay, tons of them. But what Gavin Newsom did, in my mind, by not only having Charlie Kirk of Turning Point USA, a virulent pro MAGA, misogynist, racist, and transphobe, on his podcast, and not only just giving him a venue, but fawning over him and his rapport with the youth of America, is disgusting. You can't play that game while we're deep in a fascist regime. That's a game, okay? That's beyond fighting. That's brand building. That's playing both ends against the middle. It's unacceptable, okay? It's totally unacceptable. You don't give them a venue and then say you're fighting back, because you're not. That's number one. And Gretchen Whitmer visiting the White House with a bipartisan group, like this is just business as usual here. Nothing that's going on in America is normal. None of it. This is dysfunctional, chaotic, and threatening to a very large portion of the American population. None of this is normal. To me, it was like Gretchen Whitmer going in to sit down with Hitler. That was unacceptable too. She knows exactly who she was dealing with. She knows exactly who Donald Trump is. She knows exactly what his agenda is. Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer should be out there fighting against him at every possible turn, just like Tim Walz is and other Democratic governors. Instead of trying to play like this is something that's a political situation that can be solved. There is no one that's going to negotiate with Donald Trump. He made a fool of Gretchen Whitmer to the point where she put files in front of her face so people wouldn't think it was her being photographed in the Oval Office. Give me a break, will you? Now, one other point. I also know there's only one way out of this. So if either of them are on the top of the Democratic Party ticket, I'm not going to stay at home and not vote. Sorry, folks, I don't do that. I will vote for one or the other, if they're there, and I question whether they will be. There are too many other strong candidates for weaklings like them to be at the top of the ticket in 2028. And we're far too early in the cycle to even talk about that. We haven't even gotten through the first 100 days yet, and it's a total disaster here. But this brings me to the second part of my video. Changes to the Democratic Party. 69% of Democrats polled want to see a bigger, bolder, more fight party. That's what the people want, and that's what the people deserve. So for James Carville to come out and talk smack against David Hogg is unacceptable to me. First of all, James Carville is living in 2016 or 2015, okay? We are so far removed from then, it's not even funny. His comments are totally irrelevant, all right? He is irrelevant. Worrying about whether David Hogg is, doing the right thing by maybe primarying entrenched Democrats in safe districts. Isn't that part of the democratic process we're all fighting for? More choice so that the people can weigh in? We are the deciders, not James Carville or the Democratic Party establishment, okay? James Carville supports the old boy network Democrats. That's the party people are disgusted with. They don't want candidates who take money from billionaires and corporations like the Republicans do. They know this government was bought by the wealthy. The Democratic Party voters don't want that, period, no matter what James Carville wants. So what's the harm in primarying people? There's nothing wrong with that. What would be the difference if somebody just stood up one day and decided they wanted to run against somebody? You know what? I remember when AOC ran in New York. She was never going to win. No, sir. She was too radical. She was not going to get rid of that entrenched Democrat. Well, guess what? She's on her third term. Her third term, and she's just turning 35 right now. I'm a 71-year-old who believes it's time for younger people with new ideas and to keep the older people who are still outstanding, like Bernie Sanders. I have no problem with Bernie Sanders serving. He's as sharp as a tack, and he's still Bernie Sanders. He has always been for the people. So let's get something straight here. This is the way the American or the Democratic Party voters need to think. We need the Democrats to win, no question about it. 2026 in the House and the Senate, we need to win, all of those seats if we can. There should be an outflow of voting from the Democratic Party that is record breaking. All right? That's what we need to get out of this. And we need it again in 2028. So we challenge people, whoever the winner is, if it's the new person and the people loved him and they voted them in as their candidate for the Senate or the House, they get the vote. If it's the entrenched Democrat and they win again, they get the vote. This is the way we have to think. But there is nothing wrong with moving this party to a new level. That is what the voters want. And I'll tell you one last thing before I close here. The Democrats have a new strategy for winning. And instead of giving up states that are red right off the top, they now have a 50-state strategy to win. And that is perfect for this time in our history. We are seeing record-breaking turnout for Bernie Sanders and AOC all across the country in red districts. We're seeing the same with Tim Walz. And we're seeing the same with other legislators who are holding town halls in red districts. This is the time, people, for us to push forward and to push forward boldly. No more sitting back and doing the establishment thing. We need something bold and big to save this nation. Let's see if we can get there by being practical in our voting patterns, but bold in the people we try to select. I will talk to you all later.